Hi, and welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist and health and wellness expert. I'm really excited today because I have a very special guest. It's my friend, David Cole. David, how are you?
Fabulous afternoon, sir.
Good, good. So, David, how long have we known each other at this point? Do you even remember the first time we met?
How long have you been a pharmacist?
34 years.
Yeah, so we met when you were at Eckerd's.
Yeah, which is not right beside, but almost right beside where you've had a barbershop for
55 years.
So Village Barbershop, you've worked there and run it and owned it for 55 years.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And you're still going strong. You're working full time, right?
Sir.
Every day.
Sir. 5 days a week. You bet.
5 days a week. I love it.
So,
And so for that long, 55 years, you've been able to stand 8, 10 hours a day, I guess, I would suspect.
yes. Yeah.
And how do you feel?
I feel great. Like I said, I don't feel 18 every day, but, most of the time, I tell people ask me how old I am. I say, well, you want biological or you want chronological?
There you go.
Because I'm, biologically, I'm not as young as you are.
Right.
but still, I'm nowhere close to the 75 years.
No, you don't. I mean, honestly, David, if I didn't, I knew you were 75, but if I didn't know you were 75, I would never guess it. Not only by the way you look, but by the way you work, by the way you are mentally sharp, and certainly by the way you get around and exercise and hike and do all the things you do with your kids and grandkids. It's really fun to see. And what I want my life to be when I'm 75 chronologically, right?
Right.
But not biologically.
Exactly.
So I would tell you that what you've been able to accomplish is quite amazing. And, Dwayne and I talked about that a lot when he's cutting my hair or whatever. And we talked about you a little bit on the podcast, and it was all good. There was no bad. If it was, Mike would have edited it out. So no, but it is amazing. And I do think that people should strive. You've heard me say many times in the summits, I don't necessarily want to add years to my life. I'm not going to complain if I do, but I definitely want to add life to my years.
Yes.
And I think you've been a great example of being able to be 75 and feel great and do what you want to do, right? I mean, you're not limited in any ways, are you?
Not at all.
Yeah. You can work if you want to work, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can go hike, you can go lift weights, you can walk, do whatever you want, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most of that is due to, I've always tried to live a healthy lifestyle, but when you and I got together 14 years ago, I guess it's been now 15 years ago. I've been drinking the water for 15 years, and then the vitamins and the supplements and all the information I gather from you, and always looking for a new edge, that's the biggest part, I think.
Right.
You and I were talking, I have 12 to 15 clients a day. I see people who really need some help, but they absolutely will not change.
Yeah, and some people are not willing to make the commitment, right?
That commitment, no.
And that's what, we've known each other 34 years. We talked about that. But for the last 15 or so, you've really been following the OptiU plan, right?
Yes, doing my
best. The water, the supplements, the hormone balance, you've been through the summit how many times?
4 times.
4 times. So you've been to the weekend 4 different times now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like every time, each of those 4 times, you learned new things?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This
last one, I learned stuff that I hadn't heard before, didn't pay attention, but it was a little different, from the previous.
Yeah, I'm always trying to learn new things and add new classes, right? And so we had some new classes on peptides, peptide bioregulators, some different information I've recently learned on bioidentical hormones. So
Yep.
And it says something that you are willing to come 4 times, that you're willing to pay and commit 4 weekends to learn.
I'll be there in January.
Yeah. So that'll be your 5th, right?
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so it shows, though, your commitment is where I'm going. You are committed to spending money on supplements. You're committed to drinking Kangen water. You're committed to good quality foods. You're committed to exercise. You're committed to good sleep. 5 pillars, right?
That's right.
So it's no wonder that that you feel the way you do, that you look the way you do, and that you're able to get around and do the activities that you do. How often do you hike?
With this weather, not much.
Okay.
But usually afternoons, I'll put in 3 to 5 miles twice, 3 times a week. Weekends are, 10, 12-mile hike.
Yeah. So think about that, what you just said, because I knew you hiked a lot, especially on the weekends or longer hikes.
Yeah.
10 to 12-mile hike at your age. I mean, I would tell you there's the vast majority of people my age can't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm 19 years younger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that you have the ability and enjoy it and want to go is really, really a testament again to what you've been able to do and how you've lived your life. And you said you've always tried to live a healthy life.
Right. Yeah.
You've never tried to, or I shouldn't say not tried. People don't try to live bad lives for their health, but they certainly make bad decisions. And like you say, you can talk to them all day long that they need help. But if they're not willing to quit smoking, quit drinking, quit whatever, quit eating McDonald's every day, doesn't matter what me or you tell them, right?
It does not make a difference. No.
So if you think back to the first summit, and it's in this room where we're now doing podcasts, right? Yeah. We got a new classroom, and now this has been turned into the podcast room by our friend, producer, and co-host, Mike. Yeah. So what do you remember learning at the first summit? Like what was something that stuck out, or a couple things that stuck out to you at the first one?
No, for sure. There was lots of food. We talked more about food and protein shakes, your blend, more than anything else, and let me think. That's the first time I did an InBody.
Okay. So you learned your fat and muscle.
Then a lot of information there.
Right. Right. That's a great point that I don't think anybody else has brought up. It's the first time they've ever done an InBody test.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the earlier summits were more focused on pillar 1, which was food, body composition, and things, because I didn't have all the information. The science is constantly changing. The information's coming out. So there probably was more of an emphasis. See, those are things that now that you say it, it takes me back to 15 years ago and say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There were some things that we concentrated more on back then.
Yeah.
So you said that you did your 4th one this past January, and you learned some new stuff. What's a couple things that stuck out to you at the most recent summit?
Mostly was the peptide.
Okay.
The different peptides and what they do, and what we can do, and that, I guess, more than anything else.
Okay.
The thing I like, one of the things I like about the summits is people. We had people from Charleston and Florida, and
Louisiana.
Your guys from and you learn a lot of information just from those people. And of course, I got to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
When they realized how old I was, and it was like,
and the fact that it was your 4th time there.
Yeah.
So they knew that you knew a lot, and that they didn't expect you to be how old you told them you were.
No. It was fun.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say the people, because we didn't rehearse any of this, but Dwayne said the same thing, that one of the things that he enjoyed the most was being around like-minded people who he could talk to, who, would just share, right? Everybody there, for the most part, when they come to one of these summits, is willing to share their story, willing to tell you what's happened or what they've been through. They're not really hiding things, right? They're there to learn.
Everybody's
just like everybody.
Yeah, there to share what they've already learned. Yeah.
Right. And so that's a really good point, because I do feel like, and this is not anything to do with me, but with the people like yourself that sign up and come. And that's why we charge for it, because we want to get the committed person who's willing to pitch in, share their stories, and help the other people there, because there's nothing that can be learned better than somebody's personal experiences.
True.
Which is why I love having guests on the podcast, because I can tell people things can happen all the time, but you're living it. Yep. You're doing it. I mean, I'm living it and doing it, but it's different than somebody outside of my household who's doing it. and has been so successful with it. So if you had to think of the top 3 or 4 things that you're doing that you would attribute, or 5, however many you think is the top tier of why you've been able to be so vibrant, so successful. You look great, you're thin, you're muscular, you're lifting weights. What's the top things that's got you there?
Never slow down. You never grow old. Okay. That's my motto, sort of, but to put it all together, I can't do without if I miss my supplements in one day, I can tell a difference. If I don't do it today, if I don't take them today, I can tell a difference tomorrow. So the food, I have to stay up on the food because it's so easy. Somebody invite me to lunch. Well, the cheeseburger looks tempting. That and just staying active. I've been active all my life. I asked, how long have you been hiking? Well, I can remember on my 6th birthday.
Wow.
That Dad took us hiking. Me and a bunch of the kids, guys, run around with. So, it's been an active part of my whole family, but staying active, the supplements,
okay,
the mentality, the mental, that more than anything else, I guess.
Well, I love what you said, though, about being active, because I do believe that not only the physical activity, but the mental activity. So when I think about what you just said, it makes me think of a few people that would, and some of them are older than you chronologically, but biologically you'd never know it.
Yeah.
And they never stopped. Like, I can think of a couple men at church who are in their 80s. They walk 4 to 5 miles every single day, rain, sleet, snow, shine. Now, if it's really, really bad weather, they'll go to the gym at the church, but they're going to get their walk in. Yeah. And they are mentally sharp. They're always out doing something. They're working at the church. They're volunteering. They don't have full-time jobs anymore like you, but they certainly haven't slowed down.
Don't slow down.
And they are very vibrant and very sharp for their ages.
I've got to know of at least 3 clients that are 80 years old and walk 5 miles every day.
I love it.
Every day,
Yeah.
So,
and that should tell us something, right? That your answer was stay active, never stop, and that you're telling me you've got folks that that are 80 and above and still active and walking, and that I'm thinking all these. I just named 2, or talked about 2, but there's many more than that that are advanced 80s and plus who walk every day. They stay active. They volunteer. They don't sit around on the couch and watch, I don't know, The View or whatever people are watching today, right? They're doing something with themselves.
Yeah.
And David, that brings up a really interesting point, because I've done some videos on this, but that just going out and walking is one of the greatest deterrents to Alzheimer's that we have. And especially walking outside, because there's cars, trees, birds, animals, kids, whatever, that it keeps your mind. You see all these things and you think of maybe things in the past, your dad taking you hiking when you were 6 years old or whatever. Yeah. And so it keeps us mentally sharp.
Dwayne and I were talking day or so ago, and he was telling me some of the stuff that he was researching. We share. And he said he had just read where if you take a 10-minute brisk walk every day immediately after the meal, so 3 times a day you're going to walk 10 minutes, it takes 60% of the calories that you just consumed. Yeah. Like, really?
Yeah, and it can burn. That same study shows that it can burn, or I shouldn't say burn, it will reduce the insulin response by up to 50%.
Yeah.
So think about that, because coming through the summits, the number one hormone is insulin.
Insulin, yeah.
And if we can control what I call live insulin controlled, we're going to have a much better chance of living a long, healthy life. And we're not going to put on the excess weight. We're not going to be near as likely to have the heart attacks, the strokes, the blood clots, and the cancers, the Alzheimer's. So that is a great point. And that is a study that is very impressive. I mean, a 10-minute, I mean, we're not talking about a lot of commitment here.
No.
To do a 10-minute walk after a meal to burn, you say, I don't remember that part, but 60% of the calories, but I do remember it can reduce the insulin response up to 50%. So imagine just with that, you cut your insulin in half.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive.
It is. Yeah.
When you understand, and most of the medical community does not, that controlling your insulin is the number one thing to long-term health.
I'll tell people doctors don't know anything. All they know is what they were taught. And, you and I talked about that before.
Yep.
It's just what they learned in med school, and med school is owned by the big pharma.
Yeah.
So they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you what your anything much about your that part of your health.
Well, just think about it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the insulin response, and and those insulin levels, and what causes it. And the doctor's not going to do that. He's going to give you a pill for it.
Well, and that's where I was getting ready to say. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you led me to a great thought. Is that people ask me all the time, well, you tell me it's the most important blood marker I can know. And I said, yeah, it is, and I'll prove it to you. Mm-hmm. So I think over the course of that weekend summit, I do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Why don't the doctors check it? Well, name me the drug that lowers it. And they just look at me and I go, there's not one.
Yeah.
There's not a class of drugs to lower your insulin. So they didn't learn about it. They're not going to test for it. Because how are they going to write you a prescription for it?
Yeah. And
so it's unfortunate that it just gets overlooked. And, if you look at the studies, we miss diagnosing type 2 diabetes by between 10 and 15 years because we don't test their insulin.
Yeah.
Their A1C will creep up over time, but the body will adjust and make more and more insulin from the pancreas to try to cover that up. And so the A1C is much slower to go up than the insulin is. Mm-hmm. And so we misdiagnosing them by 10 to 15 years. So now they've been doing what's the scientists call end organ damage for 10 to 15 years before we try to attack it and do something about it. And then when we do in the medical community, they do it backwards. Mm-hmm. They give you drugs to make you make more insulin, and then they give you insulin shots, which is the problem. And so it's amazing. That's what you asked me what I was doing on my computer when you come in. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm writing some text for a type 2 diabetes program that we're starting up, a new type 2 diabetes program, because it is the number one problem in America. I mean, 88% of Americans, according to UNC Chapel Hill, where I went to pharmacy school, says that we have metabolic disease, mm-hmm. which is, I'll translate that for you, insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia, diabetes, mm-hmm. type 2 diabetes. And so I'm writing this stuff up, trying to get it through to people that we're missing the boat on this. We're doing it backwards. Mm-hmm. We're treating these diabetics a disease, type 2 diabetics, I need to specify, mm-hmm. a disease of too much insulin by making their body make and giving them more insulin. So it's like you're drowning in your own insulin, yeah, rather than fixing the problem. Yeah. So you bring up some really points that just triggered me to think that.
I've got a guy that used to come to my gym at the shop, and worked out heavy, and he's overweight. He's type 2, taking 7 different medications for it.
Yeah,
and worked out heavy for about 2 months, and was off of all of the meds.
Yeah.
So that exercise did that much difference, but still he didn't know anything much about his insulin.
Yeah, but at least he was able to get off his meds, right?
He got off the meds, and
right,
made a big life change.
That's a big win for him. Yeah, and just think about it, David. It makes sense. So we just talked about a simple 10-minute walk.
Yeah,
60% of the calories from the meal, up to 50% reduction in the insulin response. So that's a walk. Mm-hmm. You tell me he's working out, lifting weights pretty heavily. So, and we know that muscle is responsible for burning 70% of the sugar or glycogen responders and sugar responders that we take in. Mm-hmm. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If he's working his muscles, if he's working out, he's gaining muscle, his body will become much more efficient at burning sugar and insulin.
Live a whole lot longer.
And he will, right, and he's reducing his risk of every major disease, and he should live a longer, healthier life.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Now, let's talk about working out. I know you've got a gym in your
my shop,
your barber shop.
Yeah.
So tell me, how often do you do resistance or weight training?
Usually about 3 times a week.
Okay, perfect.
I take a 2-hour lunch break.
Right.
It gives me plenty of time at lunch to do what I need to do.
Right.
Leaves my evenings open for walking.
Right. So you get your strength training in during your lunch.
Yeah.
And then you're able to go out and do your hike, your walk, whatever you want to do that evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
that's the beauty of being the boss, right? If you want to take a longer lunch break and lift weights.
There you go.
And the fact that you're committed again enough to have the equipment, to have the setup in your business where you can do it right there.
Yep. Yeah.
Can walk out of the gym and be right back cutting hair. I love it.
That's right.
Yeah. That's great.
Leg day's a little bit tough, but
then you got to go stand another 4 or 5 hours, don't you?
Yeah.
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 So what is your, I mean, and I know you spend a lot of money on supplements. You send me a lot of people. You just sent me a gentleman, and you sent him to Kim, our nurse practitioner, the nurse practitioner, not our nurse practitioner. I say that because we see her, but to get his hormones balanced. You obviously believe in what we do and what you're doing.
Yes, definitely.
So I appreciate you sending all these people. And I know that you told, it's Mike, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you told Mike, you said, he asked you, what did he ask you? Tell me what he asked you about supplements and stuff.
I told him what he needed to do.
Right.
Made some suggestions. And then, he came to you. And I don't know what all he bought, but it was kind of interesting because Mike could do anything he wanted to do financially. And I told him, I said, dude, I spend $400, $500 a month.
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Because he was buying Walmart, GNC, until he ran into this little problem. I told him, I said, you need to go get the best. This is the best vitamins and supplements out there.
Right.
Talk to Billy, talk to Kim, and Kim got him started in the right direction on some other things.
Right.
And also with Mike's girlfriend, but I reached one anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, you've reached more than one. But my point was that I wanted to get to is that you told him that you spent $400 to $500 a month on supplements.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike.
And he said he was not going to do that.
No, but he ended up spending.
But he ended up coming in and doing it because his health's starting to fail, right? Yeah. And he knows it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, it's not like he doesn't have the money.
No.
So I always try to get people to understand that's the best investment you'll ever make is in your health.
Sure, it is.
It's funny that we're talking about this because I had a guy come in this afternoon, and his name is Mike. It's not the same Mike we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I've known him for a long time, and I haven't seen him in the pharmacy in a while. But he come in and bought a bunch of supplements. And I honestly, when he spoke to me, I didn't recognize him. I mean, I did, but I couldn't figure out who he was because he looked so much different. And when he spoke to me, I was going, oh my gosh, who is it? Because he's like, hey, Billy, how you been? And I was like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Mm-hmm. And it hit me. His name was Mike. Mm-hmm. And I knew exactly who he was, and I know his wife very well. And I said, man, I got to tell you, I said, I almost didn't recognize you. And he said, well, I have lost about 50 pounds. Mm. And I said, oh, yeah, that's awesome. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I finally did what we learned at that time. He hadn't been to the summit in probably 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. He said, I finally started doing what you taught at the summit. He's like, I went hardcore on my eating. I'm intermittent fasting.
Yep.
I'm drinking Kangen water. I'm working out every day. And I'm sleeping. Because he's real high stress, owns his own business. He like a lot of us, you and I were talking about how I used to have that issue, not sleeping enough. Mm-hmm. But he looked like a completely different person. And he was talking about how he didn't do it in the beginning because he thought it was too expensive. And then he told me today, he said, God, I'd rather spend my retirement on this than anything else.
Yeah.
He said, because I wasn't enjoying life before.
Wow.
And I mean, he looked amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 pounds, that's
a ton.
You think about it. I mean, that's losing a lot. He just his face, everything looked completely different to me. So it's really interesting that some people, for whatever reason, with somebody like you, it clicked the first time.
Yeah.
For some people, it took 4 or 5 years and it clicked.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You know, when we first started drinking the water was when my brother found out he had cancer. And that would trigger me to, I got to do better, you know.
Yeah.
And from then on, like I say, that's been 15 years ago when I started with the water and never looked back.
Yeah, I agree.
I love it. You know?
That's what I tell everybody. If you'll do what we ask, what we teach, and you'll just stick with it for just a few months, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what I always ask for, right? 12 weeks,
Yep.
3 months. You'll never look back. You'll never want to go back.
No.
And unfortunately for you and your brother, just like for me and my granny, same deal.
Yeah.
What I would say was not a good outcome by doing the standard chemo, radiation. Yeah.
And going back to my buddy Mike, I'm glad he came to you and doing the supplements. I haven't talked to him today. I got to call him at least once a week.
Right.
You know, he has a Congen machine.
Oh.
And he's been going to a VA doctor forever. And he's not using the water because this doctor told him it's messing with your kidneys. It's going to give you kidney problems, liver problems. And I'm like, this guy has not a clue.
David, the sad part is it's just the opposite.
I know.
As you know, we've gotten people off dialysis using the supplements and Kangen water.
Yeah.
We've gotten people with fatty liver disease, completely normal liver enzymes, using the supplements and Kangen water. So isn't it amazing how misinformed many, if not most, in the medical community really are?
Yeah, true.
But I think you said it. It's a drug company driven business. It's not a business of health. It's a business of money.
Doctor doesn't want to cure me.
Right.
He'll lose money.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Right. Well, like I teach all the time, and you know this, the system is set up so that everybody makes more money the sicker everybody is.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it works. We incentivize the sickness instead of the wellness. And that's why insurance won't pay for your supplements. That's why insurance won't pay for your Kangen machine. That's why insurance won't pay for your consult with me. That's why insurance won't pay for your visit with Kim.
Yeah.
Won't pay for your compounded hormones, right?
That's right.
I tell everybody, if you're looking for the copay to help you and bail you out, you're in serious trouble. You're in serious trouble.
But then all of that is really not that expensive.
No, and if you look at the productivity
I mean, you know.
and the way you feel, I would say it's a win, 100%.
It's a win. Yes, sir.
It's a positive. It's a net return on investment, right? A net positive.
Yes, sir.
All right, David, man, this has been awesome. But before we go, now you've already given us a really good couple tidbits of advice. But I want to know if you're talking to somebody like Mike and he's not sure or he doesn't know what to do, what's going to be your top couple pieces of advice you want to leave the audience with tonight? What do they need to know?
Okay, never slow down, never grow old. You know, you got to get out and move. You got to move. You got to keep moving. You know, the food, the water, the supplements, the foundation for it, nothing else.
Right.
Got to do that.
Yep.
You know, and I guess that would be it.
That's awesome. You know? And if they're not sure what the foundational four is, they can go back and watch the episode that we previously did.
Yeah.
And it was all about the four foundations. Mike and I discussed what they are, why they're there, why I formulated them. I think that's awesome advice. So keep moving.
Yep.
Do the water and the supplements.
That's right.
I love it. That's simple. Yeah. And that's what I tell people. Being healthy is not hard.
No.
It's just having a plan and following it.
Turn off the TV and get up off the couch.
Yep.
You know.
I love it.
Good.
I love it. David, thank you so much for taking your time after a long day at work and coming and helping educate us.
Thank you. No, you're the man. You're the guru.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.